Ever wondered how an entire government, a nation's elite, and the pinnacle of art and power could all fit under one roof? Well, today we're not just talking about a building. We're talking about a world unto itself. We're diving deep into the epic construction of the Palace of Versailles. How did a humble hunting lodge transform into the most extravagant palace on Earth? Let's find out. Our story begins not with a king, but with a piece of land. In the early 17th century, the area of Versailles was mostly swampland and forest. Unremarkable except for one thing. King Louis XIII loved to hunt there. In 1623, he built a simple two-story hunting lodge made of brick and stone. It was modest, functional, and nothing like the palace we know today. It was his private getaway, a place to escape the rigid formalities of the royal court in Paris. For a while, that's all it was. A personal retreat for a king who enjoyed the simpler things. But his son, Louis XIV, had very different ideas. When Louis XIV, the future Sun King, came to power, he wasn't just a king. He was a visionary with an ego to match. As a child, he experienced a series of civil wars known as the Fronde. These rebellions, led by French nobles, left a deep impression on him. He grew up distrusting the aristocracy and the chaotic, rebellious nature of Paris. He decided he needed a new center of power, one that he could control completely, far from the unpredictable mobs the capital. His father's old hunting lodge in Versailles, just a few miles outside Paris, was the perfect spot. It was his blank canvas. So, in 1661, the grand project began. But this wasn't just a renovation. It was a complete reimagining. Louis XIV didn't just want a bigger house. He wanted a symbol of his absolute power, a testament to the glory of France, and a gilded cage for his nobles. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, right? Louis took that to a whole new level. By forcing the nobility to live at Versailles, he could keep a constant watch on them, distracting them with endless parties, rituals, and courtly intrigue, effectively neutralizing their ability to plot against him. To bring this vision to life, Louis assembled what we'd now call a dream team. He hired three brilliant minds, the architect Louis Lefebvre, the painter and decorator Charles Lebrun, and the landscape architect André Lintré. This trio would work in perfect harmony to create a masterpiece of French Baroque style. Lefebvre was tasked with the architectural expansion. His first job was to wrap the old hunting lodge in a new, more magnificent stone envelope, creating the iconic courtyard we see today. He added new wings for the king's and queen's apartments, but he cleverly preserved the original brick facade of the hunting lodge on the courtyard side, as a tribute to Louis XIII. Inside, Charles Lebrun was the master of ceremonies. He was responsible for all the interior decoration, from the soaring painted ceilings to the intricate wood carvings and gilded everything. His work was a form of propaganda. Every painting, every sculpture, every tapestry told a story. The story of Louis XIV's greatness. Greek and Roman gods were frequently depicted, but they often had the Sun King's face. The message was clear. Louis was not just a king. He was a divine, godlike ruler, the center of the universe, just like the sun. The sheer opulence was designed to awe and intimidate anyone who visited. Then there was André Lintré, a genius who didn't just design a garden. He sculpted the very earth. The gardens of Versailles are just as important as the palace itself. Lintré transformed the marshy, uneven land into a symmetrical paradise of geometric flower beds, manicured lawns, and grand canals. This was a monumental undertaking. Tens of thousands of workers, including soldiers from the army, were needed to move massive amounts of earth, drain swamps, and plant entire forests. The gardens were a symbol of man's, and specifically the king's, dominion over nature. Everything was ordered, controlled, and perfected, reflecting the king's absolute control over his kingdom. The most iconic room, the Hall of Mirrors, was built a bit later, starting in 1678, by architect Jules Hardouin-Mansart, who took over after Lefebvre's death. This hall replaced a terrace perusing the gardens. It was a marvel of its time. The hall is lined with 357 mirrors, which were incredibly expensive, and a symbol of Venetian monopoly-breaking French craftsmanship. These mirrors reflect the light from the 17 large windows overlooking the gardens, creating a dazzling, almost surreal effect. The ceiling, painted by Lebrun, glorifies the first 18 years of Louis's reign. This room wasn't just for parties. It was a political statement showcasing France's economic and artistic dominance. The scale of this project is almost impossible to comprehend. At its peak, over 36,000 workers were toiling away at Versailles. They built not just a palace but an entire city. Aqueducts were constructed to bring water to the hundreds of fountains in the gardens, a feat of engineering that was revolutionary for its time. The Grand Canal, over a mile long, was even used for mock naval battles. The cost was astronomical. While exact figures are hard to calculate, it's estimated that the construction consumed a significant portion of France's national budget for decades. Some historians suggest it cost anywhere from 25 to 50% of the state cess annual revenue during the most intense years of construction. This wasn't a project completed overnight. It was a lifelong obsession for Louis XIV. The court officially moved to Versailles in 1682, even though parts of it were still a massive construction site. For the next 30 years until his death in 1715, the king continued to add, expand, and perfect his creation. He built the Grand Trianon, a smaller, more intimate palace to escape the suffocating etiquette of the main court, and later, the chapel, which is considered one of the pinnacles of French Baroque religious architecture. Versailles became the undisputed political and cultural center of France. It was the stage upon which the drama of the French monarchy played out for over a century. Every aspect of life, from a simple meal to the king's waking and sleeping, was turned into a public ceremony, a ritual to reinforce his power. But this golden cage, this symbol of absolute monarchy, also sowed the seeds of its own destruction. The immense cost and the palace, the detachment from the struggles of ordinary French people, fueled resentment that would eventually erupt into the French Revolution. In 1789, the fairy tale came to a crashing end. A crowd of angry Parisian women marched on Versailles, forcing King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette to return to Paris, never to see their palace again. The revolution stripped Versailles of its furniture, art, and its role as the seat of power. It was left to decay, a ghost of its former glory. It was only in the 19th century that it was saved from ruin and repurposed as a museum dedicated to all the glories of France, a role it continues to serve today. So the construction of Versailles is more than just an architectural history. It's a story of ambition, power, art, and control. It's the story of one man, the Sun King, who built a world to reflect his own image, creating a masterpiece that would define an era and leave a legacy that continues to fascinate and inspire us centuries later. It stands as a powerful reminder of the incredible heights of human creativity and the dangerous excesses of absolute power. Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Let us know in the comments what other historical marvels you'd like us to explore. See you next time.